Yes, guys, I'm Si. Welcome to Cardiff City World. And tonight, it's a slight different show to what was initially scheduled. We were going to talk about David Marshall and upon his recent retirement, and kind of talk about his career and discuss certain things about whether he was the greatest goalkeeper to play for Cardiff City and etc. But just for me personally, I got to be honest, I've been thinking about it this afternoon. Obviously, it's Father's Day in the UK, and spending time with my kids and stuff like that, or one of them because the other two are away and that. But it just didn't feel right to kind of discuss David's retirement and his career, pay tribute to him after we had the unfortunate news yesterday, over the weekend that Kevin Campbell had passed away. Obviously, played for Cardiff City among a host of other clubs. Kevin Campbell was an English professional footballer, a pundit, a commentator, but most of all, he was one of football's nice guys. And what has been very obvious is fans from especially the clubs he played for sharing stories of how they bumped into him at different points and how just genuinely nice a person he was. He always had time for people. He was always a pleasure to watch on the TV. I thought he was one of the really better pundits on Sky these days. Really, his personality came through. And I just felt like, yes, this is a Cardiff City channel, and he only spent a short time at Cardiff. And he probably wasn't at the, I think it's fair to say he wasn't at the peak of his powers when he came to Cardiff, but he was a Cardiff City player. So tonight we're going to discuss Kevin Campbell. We're going to discuss Kevin Campbell's career and kind of that side of things. But first and foremost and most important, wanted to pay tribute to the man and also say that our thoughts and love, care, whatever you want to say, are with his son Tyrese and of course his family. Because most importantly, apart from being a footballer, a commentator, a pundit, all these different things, he is a father, a husband, someone who's left a big hole in people's lives. So I think it's only fitting that we spend a short time this evening chatting about the man and what an incredible career he had. Played for a whole host of football teams, from Arsenal to Leyton Orient, Nottingham Forest, Trabzonspor, Everton, West Brom, of course Cardiff City. Represented England up to under 21 level. Probably a little bit unlucky not to get a full England cap at a time where there was quite a considerable amount of quality England strikers. So I feel like it was, it's one of those. There's been times over the years, isn't it, where there's been players who have probably been a bit unfortunate not to get caps for their international teams due to the competition around. And then there's been times when players have probably got caps when maybe they didn't deserve it, or they were maybe a bit fortunate. But I certainly think Kevin falls into the prior there. I think he was probably a little bit unlucky not to get an England cap at some point because I think he had a lot of competition. Like his Arsenal career was stellar. 88 to 95, 163 appearances coming through their academy. 163 appearances, scored 46 goals in one season during when he came through their academy. He was absolutely on fire. He scored 59 goals in one season, won the FA Youth Cup in 88. And again, he came into an Arsenal side that had people like Paul Merson, Alan Smith, real stalwarts, Anders Limpar, people like this, like stalwarts of not just the Arsenal team, the Premier League, proven time and time again. And he broke into that team and did very well. He had a short loan spell at Leyton Orient twice, where again, really good, like 16 games, 9 goals, 11 games, 5 goals. This man was a goal scorer. And I think coming through at a time where you had so many strong players in the Arsenal squad in the striking positions shows the quality of the natural ability, the talent, the mentality that Kevin Campbell had. They signed Ian Wright in 91. I think it was, pretty sure it was the start of 91 season. And I think people thought that Kevin Campbell wasn't going to get much game time, but he continued to play and continued to score goals for Arsenal. And I think, Ian Wright, in my opinion, is one of the truly great Premier League strikers over the years. I thought he's phenomenal. And I think sometimes, much like some of the other guys that we see as pundits these days, your Gary Nevilles and that, they sometimes don't get the credit for just how good a footballer they were. Like Ian Wright, for me, is one of the best Premier League strikers of all time. So for Kevin Campbell as a young player there, 1991, breaking into that Arsenal team, and then they then sign. Sorry, I think I said Leyton Orient second spell. He did Leicester. He had a second spell where he played 11 and scored 5. So then, for Arsenal to sign Ian Wright, one, and Kevin Campbell then to continue to feature in that side, I think is a testament to just how good he was. He scored for Arsenal against Millwall and Derby in their sort of campaigns where they won the FA and the League Cup in 92, 93. 93, 94 season, he scored 19 goals for Arsenal, featured in their European Cup Winners' Cup run. He scored 4 goals in the one semi-final against PSG. His form dipped a little bit after that. Arsenal brought in John Hartson, Chris Kwamya. He didn't play quite as many times, but actually, in total, Kevin Campbell, according to this, played 224 times, scoring 60 goals for Arsenal, which is just a phenomenal record. And I think, whilst it's important, and we're going to talk about the different spells in his career, I think it's more important to talk about him, or as important to talk about him as a person. And the amount of stories I've seen on social media, just from Cardiff fans. He was only here for a year, played about 19, 20 games, something like that for Cardiff. And the amount of people I've seen who said like they bumped into him in this place or that place or in a train station, and he had loads and loads of time for him. And I think, as I said earlier, like when he did come to Cardiff, he, it's fair to say he wasn't at like his peak. He was coming to the end of his career. But what was clear was that he was still, he'd lost a yard of pace and this, that, and the other. But like what he did have a bit of quality on the ball, and he was still a great finisher. And I think you never kind of lose that ability. We went through a little period during those few years. We signed a Robbie Fowler, we signed a Kevin Campbell, and all right, we didn't see the best out of Robbie Fowler, but it still blows my mind that these level of players played for Cardiff City, and they still had that killer instinct in front of goal if you gave him a chance. And Kevin Campbell was a special one. I've really been touched by his fellow pundits and people who've sort of shared stories about him. And I've that clip about him when he first sees Wayne Rooney break into the Everton side is beautiful. It's beautiful to watch. I've seen it a few times now. I've seen him, I've seen it obviously it's doing the rounds. I've seen it a few times on different sort of podcasts and different shows. But it's beautiful to see. And I think it's a testament to the man, how highly people speak of him. And I wanted to also talk about the man. I was never fortunate enough to meet him, but I know people who played alongside him, and they speak so highly of him, how he looked after himself, his attitude. He didn't see Cardiff as like a one last payday to just come down and do it. He was, even at that age and that stage of his career, he was working hard for the cause. And all right, like I said, maybe not at his peak, but still, he did all right. Played 19, 20 games. And it's tricky because I'd love to have had Kevin Campbell, late 90s Kevin Campbell, the one who scored 31 goals in 77 games for Nottingham Forest. I would love to have seen him at Cardiff. Do you know what? Oh my God, he would have torn it up. Or like even the one who was at Everton until like 2005, scored 36 goals in 130 odd appearances. He's a quality footballer. Slightly sort of funny story, I suppose. Obviously, when he went to Trabzonspor, Kevin Campbell left Forest at the end of 97, 98 to join Turkish side for about 2.5 million, I think it was at the time. And this caused Forest teammate Pierre van Hooijdonk to go on strike. So those of you who are as old as me will remember him going on strike. And I didn't know the reason at the time, but it says here that his time at Trabzonspor saw him leave the club after 7 months due to the fact that he was involved in a racist incident with the club president calling him a cannibal. Jesus Christ. Campbell and his teammates had also not been paid, something which he had demanded be rectified. To show solidarity with Kevin Campbell, the two club captains, I'm going to say Ogan because I'm going to try and pronounce the surname, and Abdullah Erkan were at his side during a press conference where he stated his reasons for leaving. And that takes balls, to stand up to the president of your football club and say, no, what you just said is not okay, and I'm done. Like, that takes balls, and fair play to those two players for standing by him publicly. But I didn't realise Pierre van Hooijdonk had gone on strike because they sold Kev Campbell. Like, that's a mad one. So yeah, it's a weird one. If you have, like, if there's anything in particular you remember about Kevin Campbell from his career, whether it be at Cardiff or his other clubs, like, please do share your memories. Like, tell the story, like, because like I said, it didn't feel right to kind of pay tribute to David Marshall's career following his retirement recently tonight. Just didn't feel right to me personally, so I wanted to change it up a bit and just talk about Kevin Campbell a little bit. So I encourage everyone to get involved in this. Just had an urgent message. Sorry, I had a nightmare today. My son has flew to America and his flight got cancelled, so he's all sorts of mayhem on Father's Day today. Bear with me a second. Sorry, folks. Right. So yeah, like Reese just says there, I remember it being a big, strong tag. Man, we had good finisher, mate. And I think I said a bit earlier, I don't know if you were here, like, much like certain other players who are in punditry these days, they don't always get the credit for quite how good a footballer they were. It's like Everton, Arsenal, and I think Forest, where he was really at his peak. Like, his record at Forest is mad. 77 appearances, 31 goals. It was top quality, and like I said, I would love to have had him at Cardiff during that period, when he was like at his peak, because I think he would have absolutely tore it up. But I mean, Paul makes the point I made earlier. At the time when England strikers were available, like Ian Wright, Robbie Fowler, Alan Shearer, Stan Collymore, Michael Owen, Big Kevin, it was always going to be difficult to get in, but surprised he didn't. Yeah, I think particularly when you look back at his stats, but I think you've got to take into account stats when you're looking at players, but I do prefer the eye test. And I remember him vividly when he was at sort of Arsenal, Everton, Forest, and the kind of three, which I really remember, a little bit at West Brom, and then obviously Cardiff. But like that little period where he was at sort of Forest, and then he went out to Turkey, and then he came back to Everton. In his loan spell before he signed for Everton, so when he left Trabzonspor due to that racist incident with the president, obviously left quite abruptly. He went on loan to Everton. He only played 8 games, scored 9 goals. It's like this. The man was a goal scorer. Like, at his peak, this man was proper player. 6 foot, big boy, strong, pacey. As we said, 59 goals in one season during his academy days. He got promoted with Leyton Orient. I know the Everton fans absolutely love him. And why wouldn't they? Like, with his scoring record like that. Did suffer from injuries, and to put it in perspective, Everton's all-time highest Premier League goal scorers: Romelu Lukaku, Duncan Ferguson, Tim Cahill, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and then Kevin Campbell. He was also Everton's first ever black captain. Like, the word legend is kind of thrown around a lot by people, but I think Kevin Campbell is a Premier League legend to me. He's a legend of the game in this country. Now, I'm sure maybe Everton fans, maybe Arsenal will see him as a club legend, and rightly so. Like, that's not for me to say. I didn't, I'm not a fan of that club, so I wouldn't have said I watched him enough. But I think he's absolutely a Premier League legend, and I think just like I said at the start, like one of football's nice guys. One of hearing people speak about him, and there's just no kind of everyone just speaks so highly of him. Unfortunately, he's been ill recently, which has led to his unfortunate passing. It's sad. Like 54, I know. Like 54 is no age at all, and it's unfortunate. And it's really sad. I'm just having a look at some comments of some people. Like, everyone just speaks so highly of him, And also, I wanted to make mention, whilst I think of it, so I don't forget, because I've got a memory like a sieve. Condolences to Millwall fans, and of course, the family of the Millwall keeper who passed away. I don't want to say his name wrong, so I'm going to just double check it. I think it's just check it. Maciej Sarczyk, only 26 years old, passed away. Is just unbelievably bad, sad, tragic news. And football don't matter when things like this happen. It's brutal. And shout out and condolences to everyone involved. His family, Millwall fans, I'm sure, were absolutely reeling. And I mean, Cardiff City fans know only too well what it's like to lose a player so young. And of course, talking about Kevin Campbell, as I mentioned earlier, he's left a big hole. Take away football, take away TV, all that rubbish. The man's a father, a husband. Passed away in the hours before Father's Day. So big hug, man, to Tyrese Campbell, because I'm sure he's having a real difficult time at the moment, and it must be so difficult for the family. And it's one of those things. Kevin Campbell, though, at Cardiff City, let's talk about that. He signed for the club in May 2006 after West Brom had been relegated to the Championship. Yeah, he was released by West Brom. He signed for Cardiff on a free transfer on the 2nd of August. He scored in the FAW Premier Cup quarter-final match versus Carmarthen. He was released in 2007, but he was only here for a short period, literally 12 months, really. But I think if you speak, I bet you, and I'm going to try to do so in the coming weeks. Not obviously, it's a bit raw now to be contacting people, asking them for their memories and their opinions. That wouldn't be appropriate. But what I will do over the next weeks and months is I will try and speak to some of his teammates regarding their memories of him, because I'm led to believe that, whilst Cardiff didn't see maybe the best Kevin Campbell or the peak Kevin Campbell, I'm led to believe he had a massive impact on that squad with his character and his mentality and the way he went about training, playing, and he approached the game. And those types of players are massive. Those experienced players are massive at the football club. They really, really can pull a squad together. They can pull a team together, and they're important players. And he was a top quality player. Just trying to find a post that I found earlier talking about. Someone was telling a story about where they saw him at a train station, but I don't want to butcher it and get it wrong. Kevin Campbell had a 20-year football career. Played for a host of clubs and did very, very well. I just remember as a kid, so I would have been about 11, 12, him and Ian Wright up front together was just like that was the partnership that season, or that season or two. Like him and Ian Wright, they were just absolutely unplayable, on fire. You used to constantly see pictures of them together off the pitch. They were clearly very close. And by the way, what in the living fuck were ITV doing yesterday when they was speaking to Ian Wright about Kevin Campbell? Like, he had clearly only found out hours before. He said, when they asked him about it, he said it's too raw, it's too difficult, I don't want to talk about it at the moment. And the presenter just kept pushing him and pushing him and pushing him, and started bringing pictures up. And I understand, like, we want to pay tribute to the man, of course, and play the pictures and talk about it. But like when Ian Wright said, I don't want to talk about it, it's too soon, they gotta respect that. Like, I thought it was outrageous. I've got to say, I really thought it was outrageous. And I felt so sorry for Ian Wright. And if I was him, I'd have been absolutely fuming. And I had a very emotional time. Yeah, it's he scored against Carmarthen as the memory that people seem to have. Like I say, he's one of football's nice guys as well. I've never, even obviously when someone passes away, you hear all these different stories from people, then it's very rarely negative. But like over the years, I've never heard anybody say anything negative about him. And like, even like with Cardiff and stuff, I sometimes hear about players and people having like a bad attitude, or things happening and arguments and fights and blah blah blah. Who's good for the changing room, who's not. I've always like had that sort of, not always, but like certainly in recent years, had that connection, and never ever heard anything but positive things about Kevin Campbell. And I will be really looking forward to speaking to some of his former teammates in the coming months to kind of get a bigger picture, because I wanted to pay tribute to him this evening. I wanted to talk about him. I wanted to just take a second, like, life is short and fleeting, and sometimes we all get tied up in the day-to-day stuff, but you've got to remember what's important, who's important, whether it's you've got kids or wife or whoever. Like, love your people, spend time with your people, because you just never know when it's gonna be taken from you. And I feel, my heart goes out to his family at the moment. They must be devastated, and I'm sure today has been a really difficult day for his son. And it seems like his illness, like he was ill, and it's all happened relatively fast. And just looking at some of the tributes from people, it's heartwarming to see. Again, I have no idea what Mark Pugash was doing. I thought it was really in poor taste, and not. You'd like to think they would have spoken to him about it beforehand, but it really seemed like they kind of threw it on him. And when he said he didn't want to talk about it, they just didn't seem to acknowledge it. It was poor, I got to say. So Henry Moore wrote, Kevin Campbell's trailblazing career. Kevin Campbell began his long career at Arsenal Football Club. He made 213 appearances for the North London club between 88 and 95. He scored 59 goals in all competitions. In 1999, he would move to Everton, where he would become the club's first black captain. Campbell played for the Toffees between 1999 and 2005 before he finished off his career with West Brom and then Cardiff City. He called time on his career in May 2007 upon West Brom releasing him, but I believe it was actually after he left Cardiff City. If I might be incorrect there. No, it was after he left Cardiff City, so there's a slight error there. And he holds the record for the most Premier League goals without representing England, which again goes back to what we were saying earlier. Probably very, very unfortunate to not have a few English caps because of who was competing for those spots. But That's mad. That's a hell of a stat. That is that he's holds the record for the most Premier League goals without ever being capped. Jeez, it's crazy. Obviously, his son plays for Stoke City up front. Was born in 1999. Carved out a successful career for himself. Kevin won 4 caps at under 21 level, represented England B team in the early 90s. Yeah, it's a tricky one, man. It's a tricky one. And seeing, like Tony Adams said, Super Kev, a goal machine, a giant of a man with an even bigger heart, an intensely private and truly wonderful human being. I'm devastated for his loved ones and all of us. Love you, Super Kev, from a skipper. And that's the kind of like the messages which have been coming in and coming out, and people, it's heartbreaking. It is. But what a footballer, man! What a footballer. He just looking at some of those pictures, I'm gonna see if I can bring them up on screen. Him and Ian Wright, man, like they were like the lead duo when I was a kid. They were like together all the time, everywhere, and phenomenal, mate. That Arsenal team. Oh, there's some noise. That Arsenal team, which played that at that point, was just sensational. What a team. It's funny, innit? Like recency bias and stuff and nostalgia bias is like definitely a thing. But I think sometimes I saw a bit of a tangent. I saw Noel Gallagher saying that the current City team would smash the current Liverpool team would smash the 1999 United side. And I was just like, wow, like I don't think people realise how good some of these teams of the past, like the Liverpool 80s team, Fergie's 99 team, and I think it was 2008 team, like they were not just the best teams in Europe or the world in some cases, but like they were also very like influential in how football has changed over the years. Like people forget, like Fergie was playing with things like inverted fullbacks and stuff like that. It's just they didn't call it inverted fullbacks. There wasn't a name for it. But he was doing that. Liverpool's 80s team used to play with like a number 10 and stuff like this. And I think sometimes we get carried away with like, yes, football's faster and it's more tactical these days. But I think you forget like how good some of these teams and some of these players were. Kevin Campbell at his peak was incredible. Ian Wright at his peak was one of the best Premier League strikers of all time. Reese says, I know it was from illness, but man, we're losing too many men these days. They're all far too young. Check in on your friends and your loved ones. Yeah, 100%, mate. I was speaking to someone today, like, and I can't decide if it's because of social media or because so we know more, but it feels like in the last probably like 5 to 10 years, it feels like more like athletes and young people and people who've just finished their careers and stuff like that. More people have died than ever, and I can't. Is it just because we get everything instantly at the touch of a button at the palm of our hand, or is it because some indifference going on? I don't know, but obviously in Kevin's case, he was just ill and unfortunate, and it's nothing to do with that. Tony Cotty said, "I'm devastated to hear the news and passing of Kevin Campbell, the nicest man you could wish to meet, and a fantastic player. Thoughts to his family, friends, and family." Journalist Darren Fletcher obviously works on BT Sport and among other broadcasters. Absolutely devastated that Kevin Campbell has passed away. He's been my mate since he joined Forest in 1995. My colleague on the radio in more recent times. They called him Super Kev because he was a beloved player, but he was Super Kev to me because he was a super bloke. R.I.P. mate. Yeah, for those of you who haven't seen him talking about his story about when Wayne Rooney broke into the team at Everton as a 16-year-old, I encourage you to to seek it out. It's all over like Facebook and Twitter. Like it's really like a funny and heartwarming woman story. It's beautiful to see. And by all accounts, that Arsenal team of like Lee Dixon and Ian Wright, Kevin Campbell, those guys, they look like they were so together and they were so just together is probably the best way to put it. Like, I just realized on Twitter it still says tribute to David Marshall. Okay, thought I changed it, but I didn't change it, and I don't think I can change it on Twitter now, which is frustrating. So apologies for people who might be tuning in to see the David Marshall show. We'll do that later in this week. We will still do it, but just a slight change in the schedule, as they say. I will see if I can change that now, but I don't think I can because Twitter doesn't have an edit function, which is always fun. If you do have any questions, comments, stories, whatever it may be, please do drop them in, and we'll talk about them. Obviously, predominantly, we're paying tribute and talking about Kevin Campbell this evening, but I'm not. We will talk about other things for 5-10 minutes, but I prefer to keep it on topic where possible. We will do the David Marshall show a bit later in this week, probably Tuesday, maybe. So basically, the question is David Marshall the greatest goalkeeper to ever play for Cardiff City? And then we were going to kind of discuss his career and all the things that kind of go with it. But we'll do a full show on that. But that was the planned content for this evening. Obviously, as the transfer window opens, we'll talk about transfers and we'll have some scout reports and some different things. But it felt a bit more fitting to do a slightly shorter show and talk about it. And I know, look, on the David Marshall thing, there'll be some people who will disagree. They'll say, I haven't even said my opinion, but some people will say other keepers. I think it's an interesting one because, in my opinion, David Marshall is one of the truly great goalkeepers that Britain has ever produced. Absolutely phenomenal footballer. And I'm very, very, I'm just such an interesting one. It's really, really difficult to separate him from a couple of keepers, but I think he's one of the true great goalkeepers of this sort of generation, if you like. And it's a sad day that he's retired, but age gets to us all, mate. And it got, like David Marshall, unfortunately, his career came to an end. So just looking at Ian Wright posted 4 pictures on Twitter of him and Kevin Campbell and the group. There's like one of him and him and Ian Wright celebrating. There's another one of them, Tony Adams, Lee Dixon, Kev Campbell and Ian Wright sort of doing a karaoke by the looks of it. It's all like I say, very smiley, happy faces. They look so close, Ian Wright and Kevin Campbell, which again is mental to me that they did what they did on ITV yesterday. Like, I just don't get it. I don't understand it. I have no idea if Ian Wright's made any comment since. I'm sure, I'm sure he's good friends with Mark Pugash. I'm sure there won't be any sort of overlapping animosity, but Jesus, like, did you need to put him on the spot like that? And I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm taking that out of context, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe people will say, well, what did you expect? But I just thought, like, I don't know. I just wasn't impressed by it, shall we say. Like, I just thought it was poor to do that to a friend and a colleague when he's clearly grieving his friend, and to put him on the spot like that after he said, I don't want to discuss it, was mad to me, like really like mad. But look, such is life. These things happen. I understand that, they wanted to pay tribute to the man. I get it. It is what it is. So yeah, coming up on the channel this week, what have we got? What I can tell you is we're filming something super exciting on Friday, something special, which involves lots of people. But I can't tell you what it is. You'll just have to see what happens next. We'll have the David Marshall debate. Is he the greatest goalkeeper Cardiff City have ever produced? We'll have that on probably Tuesday. We'll have the Flower Hour. As soon as the transfer window opens, the scout reports are coming thick and fast. So if there's players that Cardiff have been linked with that you would like us to do a scout report on or do a video on, send them over to the socials, drop them in the comments, whatever. I'll tell the boys and that as well. We'll make a note of them so that we can do it, and we'll have a real good scratch. So it won't be the thing we're filming on Friday will not be out on Friday because it's going to take a boatload of editing. But I'm hoping that the City Legend events with Willie Boland might be out on Friday, or certainly part one of it. I'm hoping. But you'll have to bear with me from the editing point of view. I'm also filming a podcast with former Welsh international on Wednesday, which I'm really looking forward to because another absolute legend of the game. Certainly one for the more experienced of us. But I can, without giving his name away, I will give you some information. He was born the day before me on the 10th of November. He's made 73 appearances for Wales, scoring 2 goals. He was a defensive midfielder. He played for clubs such as Arsenal, Crystal Palace, Chelsea, Luton Town, and represented Wales 73 times. I had a little dip into management in Wales as well. I'm very, very much looking forward to chatting to him and speaking to him. I had a fantastic career, particularly at Arsenal, Palace, Chelsea. Made a lot of appearances. In total, at Palace made nearly 200 appearances. Made 100 appearances for Luton, 80 for Chelsea. So it's going to be an interesting one. Really looking forward to it. Really got lots of interesting content coming. Cardiff City World is obviously 7 days a week. Bluebird content. I'm sure we'll have a couple of videos from the Greek League. If you haven't seen the video we dropped yesterday, where myself and Pan Friday Night Lights on a Saturday it was, because I was saying goodbye to my son Friday night. So we had it out yesterday. But we talked about the attendance and the atmosphere at Cardiff City Stadium, what can be done to improve it and get it back to, or get it to where it should be. Is it the club's fault? Is it as simple as the players just playing for the club badge and then the fans will be up? The football will be better, the fans will be up. Is it that simple? Or is there a more strategic approach needed by the football club to improve it? Certainly an interesting video. Check that out. That came out yesterday. Obviously, we had the Flower Hour shopping list on Friday. They'll be back on Wednesday with another episode. Probably quiz night Wednesday, I would have thought. So all sorts of content coming this week. Ace Podcast Nation's got some stuff coming as well. So lots and lots of content coming, lots of things going on. If you're a boxing fan, I encourage you to check out the Sugar, Silk and Stretch show at 9 p.m. tonight. Produced by Ace Podcast Nation with Ben Doherty, former boxer Michael Olajede Jr., and of course, actor, boxer Gary Stretch, and they're joined by Gareth A. Davis this evening for a monumental show. They're doing some great stuff. If you're like a real traditional boxing fan, especially, and not really into all the social media-y crap that goes on at the moment, and you're like an old school boxing fan, they are producing the best boxing show in the game. It's absolutely phenomenal. Some of the old school guests that they're having is amazing. So check that out. 9 o'clock. Gareth A. Davis is on the show tonight, and it's produced by Ace Podcast Nation. Another little feather in our cap, among other things. Live shows, Cardiff City World, Ace Podcast Nation herself, and got an opportunity to do something else as well, which is interesting, which will be a regular thing, which will make me unavailable on Saturdays, which I cannot talk about at the moment. Reese says, what happened to the Danny Batten Fight Show? Danny, training UFC fighters is a full-time job. It was very difficult for him to continue to do it. So we had a break, and then we just haven't been able to get back to it. But I am hopeful that we'll get it back in some form, whether it'll be like a monthly or a semi-2-weekly thing. But I would like to. I got a lot of time for Danny, a good friend of mine. And it was a pleasure to do podcasts with. Legend of the British MMA game, of course. And also, he is going to be a guest on Gigs with Guests as well. So you will see him soon. We got some guests coming on that as well, by the way. We've got former Man United goalkeeper coming on. We've got a very well-known actor coming on. We've got Danny coming on, former footballer coming on who's retired very recently. And some interesting stuff coming up. I am trying to get David Marshall on Cardiff City World as well. I'm working on that. And I know Rob is working on some guests for the Flower Hour, a couple of which are really interesting if you can pull them off. So working on a couple myself. So we're constantly moving. If you'd like to get involved in Cardiff City World, please do. And get in contact, and we're looking for someone to do like a daily sort of transfer roundup, 5-minute video, record on your phone, give a little roundup of what's in the news that day of the who Cardiff linked with, and then just give it a mark out of 10 whether you think it's likely to happen. If you're interested in doing that, like 5 to 8 minutes, record on your phone, send it to me, job done, get in contact. And can you believe that 2 weeks yesterday is Joe Ledley night? The next Cardiff City Legends event, produced by Ace Podcast Nation, is on the 6th of July. Splott Club in Cardiff. Cardiff and Welsh legend Joe Ledley. Tickets are just £10. Very limited availability now, though. So if you do want to come, I'd suggest you get in because they sold more today. Don't think there's many left. But Jordan's on holiday, so I can't get an exact figure. So it could be sold out. Who knows? Just as we kind of wrap up, though, I spoke to Kev the other day, Kevin Campbell, and he's doing very, very well. Very, very well. Hoping that he'll do a City Legends event at some point. Just trying to find the time because he's really busy with a few different things. And, of course, he's newly married. He's on holiday at the moment. So, but we'll definitely do one. We're just trying to fit it in. In terms of wrapping up tonight, again, just want to pay tribute to former Arsenal, Forest, West Brom, Everton, Cardiff City striker Kevin Campbell, who sadly passed away yesterday. Was an absolute gentleman of the game, very, very highly thought of by everyone who came into contact with him. Absolute joy to watch play football in his peak. A truly great, a Premier League great, without a shadow of a doubt, a Premier League legend. And my sincere condolences to his friends, his family, his former teammates, of course his son, and his family. It's a brutal time for him, a brutal time for them, and can only say that it was a pleasure to watch him play football. It seems like an absolute top-notch gentleman, and the world is a less fun place without him. It's probably what I could say. I know this was a change of pace, a change of show and everything like that, and it was a bit different, but obvious reasons. We will be back to normal and doing all the usual stuff. Tomorrow night, I'll be back with the breakdown, and we'll be breaking down some stuff. So please do join us. Make sure you keep an eye on our Ace Podcast Nation. And if you'd like to support Cardiff City World and Ace Podcast Nation and kind of go that extra mile or help us out a little bit, then you can do so by becoming a member at patreon.com/Ace Podcast Nation. It's £3 a month. but it helps massively towards what we're doing and what we're building, keeps all the lights on, and allows us to do everything. And equally, for that £3 a month, you get exclusive shows, you get early access to the live event tickets, you get a variety of other rewards, discounts on merch, things like that. So there's all sorts of things, but for the price of a coffee, helps us out tremendously. And as I say, it keeps the lights on. It's been a pleasure, and I'm going to finish off the show this evening with the same thing I started it with. Thank you very much for bearing with me, and thank you very much for joining me to pay tribute to Kevin Campbell, and may he rest in peace.